Hello everybody, I'm Hema Kedan. I'm an environmental engineer and scientist, and today I'm going to talk about solid waste and solid waste management. So the topics that we'll cover here are introduction and definition, environmental problems, type of solid waste, a little quick look at facts and figures, and we'll go in depth with all the integrated solid waste management options, that is waste reduction, recycling, composting, incineration, and landfilling. And we'll conclude with the cradle-to-cradle concept. So what happened in nature, where human is not dominant, there is essentially no waste produced. All the waste produced by plants and animals are decomposed by natural decomposers such as fungus, molds, and they're converted back to nutrients that becomes part of the cycle again. So in nature, there is essentially no waste, and waste from one organism becomes nutrients for other organisms. However, in urban cities, what happens is that the waste tends to pile up. This is because we produce a lot of amount of waste, and in the nature that nature cannot assimilate. So one definition of solid waste is that it is any unwanted or discarded material that is not gas or liquid. So what has changed over time with solid waste is first the quantity. We produce way more than what we used to produce. So the amount has almost doubled from 1.2 billion in 2012 to 2.5 billion in 2025. The nature of the waste has also changed. It has shifted from being mostly organic to being mostly inorganic in nature, such as plastics. And in so doing, nature doesn't know how to assimilate that waste back into the nutrient cycle. And lastly, the toxicity level of the waste has greatly increased with time. So some of the environmental problems associated with solid waste, first of all, aesthetic problems. They tend to make a mess everywhere. They end up as litters in rivers, lakes, ocean, and natural landscapes. They block drains and sewage systems. They pose a threat to many terrestrial animal species as well as aquatic animals, marine mammals, and sea turtles. There is high risk of fire, especially from open dumps, and solid waste also have high environmental impacts due to leachate from dumps and landfills, noxious gases such as dioxin from waste incineration. Also, solid waste poses high health hazard. This is caused by proliferation of diseases such as plague and salmonellosis through vectors, example rats and insects that feed on the solid waste. There is also contamination of potable water supply with pathogens that comes from solid waste, and this can result in many diseases such as cholera, jaundice, hepatitis, etc. So solid waste, to be able to manage solid waste, we first of all have to know what type of solid waste do we have. And these are generally municipal solid waste. These are all the waste generated by household, apartments, schools, etc. There is medical waste generated from hospitals, clinics. There's a special category which is hazardous waste. We'll look at that in a later presentation. There's also industrial waste, so all the waste generated from agriculture, mining, manufacturing, construction, and the oil and gas industry. And there is also radioactive waste. Now, a quick look at facts and figures. So waste is rising, whether it is locally or on a global level, waste generation rate is rising. It was around 2.01 billion tons in 2016 and is projected to reach 3.4 billion in 2050. That's a 70% increase. In the United States, the United States only has 4.6% of the world's population, but it produces a third of the world's solid waste. This makes it the highest producer. More than half of that waste is buried in landfills. And 98.5% is industrial solid waste in nature. Now, a quick fact, the 1.5 municipal solid waste is enough to fill a bumper-to-bumper convoy of garbage circling the globe around 8 times. That's a lot. Now, another table showing the facts around the world. So this table is showing the per capita generation in the world, and this is linked to the level of economic development of the country. We have upper middle income, high income, and low middle income, and the low income. So the waste generation, the lowest one is from Ghana, 0.02 kilogram per capita per day. That's in Africa. And the highest is Kuwait, 5.72 kilogram per capita per day. This is because of its oil and gas industry. In between, we have the other countries. Brazil, 1.03, United States, 2.58, is still one of the highest. United Kingdom, 1.79, India, 0.3, and China, 1.02. This is just part of the list. The whole list can be accessed with a link given below in the slide. Now, also important when you want to manage waste, you have to know what is in the waste. So the composition of the waste is very important at this stage. So a look at the municipal solid waste in the United States, it is mostly composed of paper, 25.9%, followed by food waste, 15.1%, yard trimmings, 13.3%, and then plastics. Now, on the right-hand side, you see a pie chart. It shows that most of the waste, municipal solid waste, is actually being sent to a landfill with 52.5%. Around a third of it is recycled, 8.9% is composted, and around 13% are burnt for energy production. Now, how to manage the waste? So the traditional solid waste management is a high waste approach. It means there's no real effort to reduce the amount of waste produced, but only try to reduce the harm that it can cause to the environment. So there is no real attempt at reducing the amount or toxicity of waste. The wastes are simply mixed and transferred from one part of the environment to the other. They can be buried, burned, or shipped from one country to another. Now, integrated solid waste, on the other hand, is a more systematic approach. It draws on the precautionary principle, and it prioritizes waste reduction strategies. So the most preferred option here is to reduce the amount of waste produced, followed by reuse as much as we can, recycle as much as we can, incinerate is down at the lower level, and lastly, the least preferred option is to bury any waste produced. Integrated solid waste management is a low waste approach. It means that the emphasis is on trying to reduce the waste. It prioritizes waste reduction. It considers the waste produced to be more of a resource than a waste. And there is no one single solution to waste management. It doesn't just rely on landfilling or incineration. Rather, it suggests that you use a multiple number of strategies to achieve ultimately this least amount of waste that needs to be buried or landfilled. Now, this is a flowchart showing the functional elements of integrated solid waste. On the left of the red dotted lines is a traditional waste. Waste is generated, is handled at the source, collected, and disposed of. On the right-hand side is integrated solid waste management. So how you do at each level, how you can better manage the waste. At the generation level, you reduce it, followed by source and separation, recycle, and lastly, landfilling. Well, this ends the first part of our presentation. We'll continue with the second part.